Okay, the first thing we need to do if you don't already have the program is to download and install DAZ Studio. So to pick up a copy, and it's free, you want to go to daz3d.com to their website, and here we are here on the home page, and you want to go up to, if you don't have the program, you want to click on this free download button right here, and that will take you through the steps to download and install DAZ Studio. Once you get the program downloaded and installed, come back to the website and let's go over here to the shop section. And what we need to do is we need to get the Genesis 2 Essentials. So the best way to find out where that is to go up here in the search bar to search the store and just type in Essentials. And then over here we can see Genesis 8 Essentials, Genesis 3, Genesis 2. We're going to be using Genesis 2 because it works flawlessly with Unreal Engine. Because of the skeleton, because of the rigging, morph targets and all that kind of stuff. There's still issues with Genesis 3 and Genesis 8 that we don't want to get into right now. So go ahead and click on Genesis 2 Starter Essentials, and you're going to want to download this and install it into your DAZ Studio. The next thing you're going to want to do if you don't already have Unreal Engine is hop over to unrealengine.com and click either one of these blue buttons, Get Started Now or Download, up in the right hand corner. And this will take you to where it'll immediately start downloading the program to your computer, and it will walk you through the steps to get the program installed. And once you're completed with that, we'll go on to the next module. In this module, we are going to cover how to get the morph targets and expressions out of DAZ Studio and into the Unreal Engine. Now here's an example of some facial expressions and a simple animation that has been exported from DAZ Studio and into Unreal Engine. And as you can see up here, all of the morph targets and the sliders are over here in the animation curves section. We can see them being played up here in real time. And down here are all the curves. So each one of these can be independently controlled. So you can control the eyes here. We want to do side to side for the eyes. They're right there. Squint the eyes. Anything, pretty much anything that you can control over in DAZ Studio can be brought into Unreal Engine, and then we can control and then animate these separately. Because what we really want is we want the ability to have these curves here, these sliders and the morph sliders, and the ability to animate them. So this is what we want to do. This is what we want to accomplish. So let's hop over to DAZ Studio, and we will continue in the next video. The first thing you want to do is launch DAZ Studio, and then we want to find the Genesis 2 Starter Essentials. Double click on that, and then here you can select which character you would like to use. And for the purposes of this tutorial, let's use this one here, so double click. Now she's already posed, and we don't want to use this because she has an expression on her face already, and we want to get her into a default situation. So go up to Edit, Figure, Restore, and then Restore Figure. And that will put the character back in the T-pose. So you can spin this around here. Now you can either leave the character in the T-pose while we work on getting all the facial expressions set up and ready for export to Unreal Engine, or you can pose the character. So let's do that. Let's go to the power pose, and that's by clicking on the icon here that has the bone and the little arrow. And then go up to Window, Panes, and let's find our power pose right here. Okay, so this will give us more. If you'd like to spend some time posing the character, you can do it here. Otherwise, just grab the arm and like move the arm down like that. Move the other arm down. Just kind of put her more into a natural position. If you wanted to pose the hands, you just go select the hands here, and then you can move the fingers, the wrists, and so on, just with these controls right here. Very easy to find the joints and everything and pose into, a neutral position. If you want to pose her head, just click on it. We can move the head around here. Okay, so now we have her in a neutral position. And the next thing we want to do is go ahead and select the head and then come over here to this icon. And we're going to zoom into her face so we can get a really good look at the expressions as we make them. What we're going to use is a tool called Puppeteer, and this is a really cool tool that Daz has that some people don't even know it's in here, and some people don't use it very much at all, but it's an extremely powerful rigging tool, and that's how we're going to set up all of our movements, our eye movements, our mouth movements, our expressions, and so on. So I already have the Puppeteer in here, but where you find it is you go over to the Window, Panes, and then down here, Puppeteer. So go ahead and find that, and then you can dock it over here, or you can have it by itself, and it's a type of window where you can expand it, enlarge it, that type of thing. We're going to go ahead and put it right here. So we're ready to go. You can zoom in and out with your mouse wheel. And we're set up and ready to go. So what we want to do is we want to create some layers to keep things organized. So the first thing I like to do is make this first layer that's here. Let's rename that. So over here in the window, right click, select rename layer, and let's just rename this mouth, because we're going to put our open and close mouth movement and our smiles in here. So we've got our mouth tab here. And then what we want to do is make sure that we're on edit right up here, that's selected. Not preview or record, but edit. And then go ahead, since her mouth is in a closed position, just click in right around the middle of the Puppeteer screen. Now go down here to the parameters. Under pose controls, go ahead and go into the scene file first and select Genesis 2 female. Under pose controls, you'll see head. Sometimes these get confusing. It gets a little confusing and you can get lost in here, so I'm going really slow. If I'm going too slow for you, just skip ahead in the video. Click the down button here, and what we're looking for is the mouth. So go ahead and just select the mouth here. And we want to go down where it says mouth open and mouth open wide. The one we want the best one is mouth open wide, because you can open it as little or as much as you want once we get over to Unreal Engine. So select that and open this all the way up to the 1 setting. And then down here, I usually skip a couple of squares, and then on the third one I put the dot. So I just left clicked in here, and that made my selection. Click over here, and this one it goes back to the default closed position and open. Closed, open. Now go up here to the preview. This allows us to move in real time. So what I'm doing is I'm just using my left mouse button and I'm moving it up and down to open and close her mouth, just like a puppet. So this is like a digital puppet. It's a good way to think about it. Now let's go back to edit, and we want to add a different mouth movement while we're in here. So go into the mouth section again, and we want to look for mouth, smile, open. And go ahead and move that all the way to the right. And then over here, let's skip a couple boxes and put that right here. So now we have our smile operator right there. We click here, goes to the default position. Over here we have a smile, default, open, default. And now let's go look and see the order I'm doing this. You have to move the slider and then click into the Puppeteer screen. Now we want to go over to the, let's find mouth frown. There it is right up here. Move the slider all the way to the right and click right here. So now we have a really good frown on the face. Click in the default and it comes back to the neutral position. Okay, now let's go up here to the preview button and let's just look and see what we have. Now that we have these different morphs in here. And click and we can open the mouth and move it to the right. Get a nice smile. And you'll notice as you move it around in the screen, it's creating on-the-fly blends of the different mouth positions. So over here I can have a open mouth and a kind of a frowny face. Over here a smile and an open mouth. So it gives you the ability to really get some cool expressions. Very, very powerful controller here. Nice rig. Let's go back to edit. And those are the mouth movements that we want. Actually, there's one more that's really good. It's mouth pucker. Let's see if we can find that one. Lips pucker. So I just put in the search box pucker and it brought that up. So let's go ahead and look at this. This can create some really nice speech animation. So let's go ahead and move this one right there. And we have a nice pucker. Put it on preview. See how cool that is? Now, what's also nice in DAZ is we can actually create some animations. I'm not going to go into that right now. We'll do that later. But we can hit record and we can record and operate this like a puppet in real time, and DAZ will record the animation in real time so that we'll be able to export that if we'd like into Unreal Engine and then render it in real time with the cool Unreal Engine features. So just keep that in mind. Right now what we're doing is we're just setting this up so that we can export all of the morph targets and the morph sliders and get them into Unreal Engine, where we can then use those to further animate, and refine the animation, the facial animations. Okay, so we have our first one done. Now we need to go on and let's do the eyes next. And what I like to do is create another layer. So to create another layer, you right click, select add layer, and let's call this one blink because this one is going to be blinking the eyes closed. Okay, and this gives us a fresh screen here. Zoom in a little bit. And now we're going to go down to, let's get rid of that selection there. Let's go down to our parameters, and we want to select, under expressions, we want to select eyes. Okay, so let's go ahead and make sure we're in edit right here. And in the middle, just go ahead and click a dot right there. That's going to be our open-eyed neutral position, just like she's staring at us right now with her eyes wide open. Now down here, we want to find eyes closed. Now you'll notice they have left and right. You could do those individually if you wanted, but I prefer just to do them both for a blink, obviously, because they blink together. So we want to go ahead and select the one all the way and then click in the screen. So that'll be the closed position. So click on the open here and the closed. Open. So if we want to preview it, we just click on preview, click your left mouse button, and move it up and down. And this will give you the real-time ability right here in Puppeteer. Back to edit. Now there's one more that's a really handy one that I like, and that's eyelids top up right here. So if you move this one all the way up, her eyes kind of open wide, so she looks a little bit scared. And that's a really good one for facial expressions. So let's put that one up here at the top. Count 2 squares and put it right there. Okay, so that's regular and that's up. So if we do a preview, you can see her blinking. You want to move it up to get that kind of an expression. There it is. Back to edit. Okay, so now we have our blink. So that will be carried over into Unreal Engine. Now, I want to mention right here, it's not enough, and we'll go into that, but it's not enough just to do these in Puppeteer. We have to actually bring them into the timeline in order for DAZ Studio to export them properly. Otherwise, you're going to get it over into Unreal Engine, and there won't be any morph targets at all. But we'll go into that real slow and in detail as well. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is to be able to move the eyes left and right and up and down. So back in here, right click with your mouse, or right mouse button. Let's add another layer, and let's call this one eye movement. And we've got our fresh screen here. Zoom in a little bit. So we're still in the eye section. We want to scroll down and we want to find eyes side to side. So right now let's just click our middle one here. That's our neutral position, staring straight ahead. And eyes side to side, move this all the way to the right. And just so this makes sense, on the right hand side of that dot, count 1, 2, 3, put a dot in. Now you can do this however you want. You might want it way out here. You may want it closer. It just depends on what you feel comfortable with. This is totally customizable and totally your choice on what you like. So find out what you like and go with that. Okay, back to the, click on the middle one. Now go back to the side, move it to the other direction, to the left. Count 1, 2, 3, and let's put this here. See how these move. Doesn't have to be perfectly in the square. It doesn't really even have to be lined up to work. And back to the middle. Okay, now the next thing we want to do is we want to find the up and down, which is way at the bottom here. So we're in the middle one here. We're in the default position. And we want to move the eyes up. Count 2. Let's put that in the up position here. Click on the middle. And then move the eyes down. 1, 2, 3 squares down. Click back in the middle. So now we have all of our eye movements. And let's go to preview. And let's take a look at what that does. So left mouse button right about the middle. Now as you move your mouse around, check that out. Her eyes are rotating around. Really, really high-end eye controller right here in Puppeteer. So you can look up, look down, look to the left. And this character, this model is a really good one because as you'll notice, her eyelids are following the movement of the eyes. So this was designed really, really well by DAZ. So this is our eye movement. Really, really good. We'll be able to have this control right over in Unreal Engine as well once we get it over there. Back to edit. Make sure you always go back to edit when you're done. And the next thing that we need to do is we need to go to expressions. And we're going to pick a few expressions to be able to bring over into Unreal Engine. Now keep in mind all of these morph targets, whatever you have, and even the custom ones that you can buy over in the DAZ store, and there's a ton of stuff, very affordable, where you can buy expressions that somebody has already taken, an artist has already taken a lot of time and created some really cool facial expressions. You can use all of those too once you bring it into DAZ, and it'll move right over into Unreal Engine. So let's create now another layer or tab. Right click, add layer, and let's name this one Expressions. Zoom in a little bit, and let's go up here to Expressions. Now she's in the default pose right now, which is where we want her face to be. So let's go ahead and put our dot, our controller for the default pose right there. And the first one let's do Afraid. Okay, so move that all the way to the right. And let's put this one here. Again, you can put it wherever you want, whatever you're feeling comfortable with. I'm going to put it right there. And then click back on the default one. And let's say we want to do Angry. And let's move that one over here. Click back on the middle one. Let's go down here to Excitement. Move that one over here. Click back on the middle one. Disgust. We can move that one down here. Click on the middle one. Okay, let's take a look at that in a preview. See, as we move the mouse around, we're getting the different blends of the facial expressions. And again, once we get this over into Unreal Engine, we'll be able to combine these as well. But right here in Daz, you have this tremendous ability to create some very, very cool, very, very high-end looking expressions and blends, combinations. So if you wanted to, you really could create all of your facial expressions and animations right here in the timeline and export those into Unreal Engine. That's one way to do it. There's several different ways you can do it, or you can just take the morph sliders over into Unreal Engine and then do the animation and the tweaks over there, or a combination of both. Gives you a lot of power. Okay, back to edit. Okay, so you can see here, let's go back to preview for a second. So you can see what we've done is we've created the mouth controls. So the mouth opens and closes, create a smile, a frown, and the lips puckering. We have the next one, which is blinking the eyes and making the eyes go wider. And then we have our eye movements, moving the eyes around. Really cool eye movements. And then we have our expressions. And we've just put in 4 different expressions here. Again, you could have as many you could put in 20 expressions if you wanted and bring them over. The sky's the limit. But we're going to keep this, fairly simple just so we can get the procedure down. Okay, and that's going to wrap up this video. In the next video, we're going to go into how to get these movements and these morphs into the timeline so we can then export them into Unreal Engine. Next, what we want to do is we want to get all of our expressions, eye movements, blinks, and mouth, all of our morph targets down into the timeline. Now, by default, the timeline should be showing the animation timeline, but if it's not, go up to Window, Panes, and then down here you'll find Timeline, and just select that and it'll open up the timeline for you. The next thing we need to do, we're going to need more than 30 frames, so go down here in this box here and type in 140. So that'll expand out and it'll give us 140 frames to work with. Now, we're not going to be creating an animation for use. The purpose is just to get the morph targets into the animation so that we can then export it as an FBX file to be used in Unreal Engine. So this process is kind of boring and tedious. Let's click on the mouth here. So as we go through this, if you want to speed up the video or you just want to skip ahead, feel free to do that. But it is tedious, but it has to be done correctly, otherwise it's going to mess up and it's not going to work. So I'm going to go very slowly, and explain, as we go along. Basically, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be moving ahead 5 frames for each position. So we're going to start off here on our mouth tab in the neutral position here. And then we're going to move our cursor in the animation timeline ahead 5 frames in between 0 and 10. And then we're going to go over here and click on the mouth open position. When you do that, you'll notice that DAZ Studio has automatically created a keyframe for you. You can see by the little black notch icon down there. Now we want to move the cursor ahead to frame 10. Go back up into our puppeteer screen or segment here and click on the closed mouth position. Now let's move our cursor ahead 5 frames again, and let's click on the smile control, and we have a smile keyframe. Move it forward to the frame 20, back to the default position. So we always want to go back to the default position in between. Move the cursor ahead 5 frames, click on the frown control, move ahead to frame 30, click on the default position again. Move ahead 5 frames, click on the puckered lips position, then frame 40, and back to the default position. So as we slide the cursor, we can see that our character is moving through the motions that we have. So we have all those the way we want it. Those are all in the timeline correctly. Next, we want to click on the blink tab. Make sure that the default position, eyes wide open, is selected. Go to the timeline cursor, move ahead 5 frames, and then go back into the puppeteer. Click on the closed eyes position. Move ahead to frame 50, back to the default open eyes position. Move ahead 5 frames again, and then select the eyes wide open where her eyes are really wide. Move the cursor ahead to frame 60, and then back to the default position. So now we have all of our blink positions here. Next, we want to go to the eye movement, where our side to side and our up and down eye movements, and we want to get those into the timeline. So again, starting with the default position here, move our cursor ahead 5 frames in the timeline, and let's select the eyes to the right position first. Move the cursor to frame 70, and then back to the middle. Move ahead 5 frames, eyes to the left position. Move the cursor to frame 80, back to the middle position. Move ahead 5 frames, click on the eyes looking up. Move forward to frame 90, click on the eyes looking forward. 5 frames ahead, eyes looking down, and then to frame 100, back to the default position of eyes looking straight ahead. Okay, now we have all of our eye movements, and just to check, let's scrub through our timeline. We can see that her eyes are looking around, they're side to side, up and down, to frame 100. Now last, we want to go to our expressions. Move the cursor ahead 5 frames. We're in the default no expression mode here, the default position. Let's go to the right and select this expression. Move forward to frame 110, back to the middle position. 5 frames forward, and let's choose the left expression here. Go to frame 120, Click the default middle position again. 5 frames forward. Click the expression at the top. 5 frames forward, back to the middle position. 5 frames forward for our last expression here at the bottom. And then 5 frames forward to the end. And we're back in the default face position, no expression. Now down here, let's just click on the play button and we can see that it's going through all of these different expressions, mouth positions, eye positions, blinks, and so on. So we have everything in here that we want. And again, this isn't for an animation to be used in Unreal Engine, although I should say right here that if you did want to take time creating an animation in DAZ Studio that looks really good, you could do it and then export that as an animation that would import into Unreal Engine flawlessly. So you could use this as your facial animation tool as well. Okay, so that looks all good. Make sure that you go up and you save your scene so that you save all your hard work in case your program crashes or something like that. And that is it for this video module. In the next video, we're going to go over how we prepare the FBX file so that we can export all of these animations and morph sliders. Okay, now we're all set and we have our morph targets in the timeline and we're ready to export our character along with the morph targets and the animation. So we want to first go up into the Scene tab and make sure that the Genesis 2 female is selected. Then we want to go up to File, Export, and I've already saved this, so I'm going to go ahead and delete this so we can go through it again because I want you to see how the entire process works. So let me just delete that. I'm going to call the file G2F morphs for Genesis 2 female morphs, and make sure that in the drop down menu here you're on Autodesk FBX, not any of the other choices. So we're going to go ahead and select that. I'm going to save it to the desktop. Click Save, and it's going to bring up our FBX export options. And we want to embed, make sure these are selected like this: embed textures, FBX 2012 binary. It could be 2014 too. Either one of these are going to work. Make sure embed textures is selected. Merge clothing into figure skeleton. Allow degraded skinning. Allow degraded scaling. Locks and limits. Morphs, real important that those are selected because otherwise all of this work you've done isn't going to be compiled into the FBX file. And also animations needs to be checked. Figures, props, and selected. You could check that if you want. That just means that over here in the scene file, you have to make sure that you've selected the file. And then down in the bottom, let's uncheck that though. Uncheck selected because we want to make sure that we get everything in this file. It's going to have the charm hair. See where it says yes. Genesis 2 female, bikini top and bottom, all of that says yes, so we've got those all selected. Important also, let's click on the Edit Morph Export Rules. You want to make sure that Final Anything Bake is selected, so that's basically going to take everything and put it into the file. Now, later you'll see when we get into Unreal Engine 4, we're going to do a little bit of cleanup because it duplicates a few things. But for now, it's easier to do this. There is a way that you can add, and you can tell DAZ Studio just to give you certain animations or certain morph targets and nothing else, but you've got to make sure that the naming conventions are in here exactly, otherwise it won't work correctly. So let's go ahead and delete that. Leave Final Anything Bake. Accept that. So it looks like we've got everything here that we need. Everything looks good. And then we just go down to Accept. And now DAZ is going to go through here and it's going to, you can see over here that it's picking out all of our morph targets It's getting all that in there. It's taking our animation and it's recording the animation into the FBX file so that we can get everything all nice and neat in the FBX file. Okay, now we have our FBX file exported. So what we need to do now is go into the Epic launcher. Let me minimize DAS. And we want to go into the Unreal Engine launcher. So open that up. And we're going to create a new scene. This is going to be a practice scene. And the only thing we want to have in it is this character that we've been working on. So you want to go to the big yellow launch button here and make sure it's 4.19. So if you haven't upgraded, now's a good time to upgrade to 4.19. Click the launch button and it's going to launch the Unreal Editor for us. And we want to select the New Project tab. We want a blank scene, which is already highlighted for us. And we want to have these settings, desktop or console, maximum quality, and let's go ahead and create the scene with starter content because we're going to need some of the materials. And then choose where you want to save it on your computer and select a name. I'm going to choose the same name that we had for the export. G2F. And you have to put an underscore here. You can't have a space. So G2F for Genesis 2 female underscore morphs is going to be the name of our project. And then just click Create Project. And Unreal's going to create that new one for us. Okay, now we have a brand new scene. Up here we can see that it's called G2F underscore morphs. And we are ready to import our character. So you see, click over here to expand the panel. We're in the content browser. And I want to create a new folder. So click on the content folder button, right click, and way at the top here, let's select new folder. And let's just say G2F underscore morphs. We'll keep everything consistent. And hit return, and now we have a new folder where we can put our character. Now, in this blank area, we can either drag, and you can drag your file in here, or right click, or add new. I usually right click in here and go up to import asset. And this is going to open up. I want to find our G2F morphs. Click open. And now we're going to get, this is the very important import options for our FBX. And this is where you can mess up really easy and forget to check and import animations. See how this is not checked yet? We need to check the import animations, otherwise it won't work. In the mesh, make sure that skeletal mesh and import mesh are both checked, ticked off in the boxes. We don't have a skeleton yet, so we just leave this to none. And then right here we need to show advanced. So click on that. Easy to miss this part. And then go down here where it says import morph targets. This needs to be checked. Otherwise all of our morphs, they're not going to come in and we're going to be scratching our head and wondering where they all went. So make sure that's checked. Make sure import animations is checked in the animation section. And then way at the bottom here, we want to make sure that we import our materials and import our textures. Otherwise it's going to come in with nothing. It's just going to be all, with no texture or materials at all. So once we have all those selected, go ahead and click import. And this is going to take a few minutes depending on your computer configuration. So it's going to import all of the animations, all the materials, all the textures, and so on. And I'm going to go ahead and speed this part up so we don't have to wait for it. Okay, so now our character has been imported, and as we can see down here, the shaders are compiling at least part way. It's gonna finish up when we get into another part. So let's go ahead and just ignore that warning there. And here's all of our textures, our characters in there, all of our materials. And we're going to clean this all up. We're going to create a couple more folders and get organized so it's easier to work with. But for now, that's the end of this video, and we'll continue on in the next one. In this video, we're going to get organized so that we can work better. So over here on the left-hand side, we want to create some folders inside of the G2F_morphs folder. So select it, right-click on it, and let's create a new folder and name it Materials. And then click on it again, and let's make another folder, and let's call this one Textures. And then for later, we're going to need one called Animations. And let's click back on the main folder. And then in here, what we want to do, we see our folders are here. So we want to just control click on all of the round spheres. And I'm going to speed this up in a minute so it's not so boring, but you want to just control click on all of these and then drag them into the material folder. It's going to ask if you want to copy them here or move them here. We want to move all of them into the material folder. We'll continue on. After we get all of the materials moved over to the folder, then we'll go to the textures and do the same thing. And it looks like here's one trailing behind here. Okay, so now we've got a little better organization here so we can get to things a little easier and it's not so cluttered. And now what we want to do is the default scene that was loaded for us when we created this project. It's got some nice chairs, so we're all exhausted from loading the scene. We can just kick back and relax on those. Actually, we're not going to need these, so let's just select them and delete them. So we have a blank scene here. Now let's save this level. So go to File, Save Current As, and we can leave it in the Content folder here. And let's call this new level or this map G2F_morphs map. Okay, and here it is right here in our content folder. And go back to the G2F_morphs file folder. And now what we want to do is we want to drag our character in the scene. Remember down here at the view options, you can make your icons bigger or smaller to your liking. So go ahead and adjust that if you'd like. And then left click, drag the character into the scene. Press the F key on the keyboard so it frames us closer. And then remember the Alt button, left mouse button to rotate around our character. Now, because of the lighting, what we want to do here is go ahead and press the space bar to get the rotate our object, and as a rotator around here. And she's got a really nice open mouth here. She's looking really, really scary. And we're going to take care of that once we get into the animation screen. Okay, now when I loaded her up, she shaders we're compiling. So if you're just now dragging her into the scene, probably what's happening down here is it's going to have a little message saying it's compiling shaders, and there's 2,600 and so many that need to be compiled. So just go ahead and wait for a minute, wait for a few minutes while the shaders are being compiled and all the textures are being added to your character. And then you'll be good to go. So after it's all done being compiled, we've got our character in the scene. We want to go ahead and right click on the character and go up to where it says edit G2F_morphs. This is our character. And this is going to open up a new window. We want to grab the tab, left click on the tab here, and move it up to dock it to the top. So now we've got both screens open. And this is going to give us all of our materials here and access to our character. And go ahead and move in. I usually like to move the camera speed down, reduce it down to about 2 in this window. And then go ahead and zoom into your character. You notice that the eyes are white. We're going to take care of that as well. And then over here in the animation section here, where it says default, go ahead and say use specific animation, and then select down here G2F morphs animation that we brought across from Daz Studio, because we just want to get her, you know, in a natural state here. And then down here, just hit the pause button, because this is just playing all those morphs that we brought across. Over here, in 4.19, they have a new setting here where it says auto. So it's trying to do auto exposure for us, which is changing as you move the camera around. What I do is I usually take it off auto and I just adjust this down, usually to like minus 0.4 or minus 0.3, something like that. Whatever looks good to you. And let's zoom in really close. Using our mouse. And now we have our character lined up here. Now before we finish up this video, I just want to show you the other window, the other section that we're going to be using. So go up here into the animation and click on that, and here's where all of our morph targets are. We're going to be cleaning these up as well, so you can go ahead and pause this animation. But there's where all of our morph targets are. Also, if we go back here and we click on this tab, we have all of the morph targets that have come across from Daz Studio. So that's where they're located, morph target, and over in the animation as well. In the next video, we're going to start cleaning all these up, and then we're going to go into the animation curves and start doing a few simple animations. Next, we need to do some cleanup. So let's go to our tab here, G2F morphs. And so we have the morph targets over here, we have our materials over here, and we're going to have to fix a couple of things here. We need to fix the character's eyes, and we need to fix the hair. So remember when we originally created this scene, the scene, we included the starter content here, and we are going to need the glass material that's in here. So the way we're going to do that, the easiest way, is to go over here in the materials section, and everywhere we see the white, plain white globe or sphere needs to be replaced with glass material. So what we do is we just come over here, let's see where it says eye reflection here, click on the down arrow key, and then right underneath the browse, start typing glass, G-L-A-S-S, and then what will show up is M_glass. That's the material we want. So go ahead and select that. And it's going to start, you can see down here, it's compiling the glass shaders. It's a pretty complex material, so it's going to take a minute to do that. But while it's doing that, we can go down here to the next white sphere and do the same thing. Just type in here glass and select M_glass. And then let's scroll down here, and we need to go to where it says cornea. Glass. That should be the last one. And down here, we're waiting for it to compile the shaders so we can see the effect of it. Okay, shaders are completed. And as you can see, we have some nice eyes in there now. The pupils are showing up. The whites of the eyes, the textures are in there correctly. So now she looks pretty good. Now the next thing, the hair is looking a little too transparent, and we need to change a setting in the hair. So we need to go back over to our main window. And here, let's clean this up here. And let's go to our materials folder. And we can see that there's several different, there's actually, it looks like quite a few here that we need to change. So what we need to do is go to each one, like bangs, the base of the hair, the top, the skull cap, and so on. We're just going to take each of these and adjust them to where they're going to look the way they should. So double click. Okay, and this is going to open up the material editor. Right mouse click to move around, and zoom wheel to move in and out. Okay, so let's just grab this with the left mouse button, and let's just move these over here. And the thing we want to change is we want to select on bangs, so this is highlighted over here, and we want to make it two-sided. And then the shading model, go down here to hair. And this is just going to take a moment to update. And then we want to click Save. And it just takes a moment to go through and save the material. Okay, so the bangs are done. Go ahead and click out of this one. Go back over to this window. And next we have to do the base. Right mouse button to move. Just drag these over just so they're, you don't have to, but it just, looks more organized for the next time you open it up. Remember to click over here to this one here. Two-sided. And in the shading model, select hair. And then click Save. And then click out of it. Back to our window here. I'm going to speed this up as we go along here just so it's not so boring and it's not in real time. Okay, remember to click Save after you do this, otherwise the changes won't be kept and you'll lose the changes. And let's just double check that we have everything. Yep, everything looks good. Okay, now we're back into the scene, and you'll notice that her hair looks darker and it's fuller, and we'll see once we get her in a scene properly lit, it'll look much better. Okay, now the next thing we need to do is we need to clean up the morphs, because when we came out of DAZ, remember how we exported and we just said to bake and export everything? Well, that's what it did, and so we've got some duplication and overlap. So click on the animation tab up here, and we can see that we're in the animation window now. And if you click on play, you'll see that there's some really freaky stuff happening here. Her eyeballs are coming out of her face. Her her mouth. I mean, everything is just happening way too extreme. And the reason is because we have duplication morphs, and it's playing, you know, it's overlapping the morphs one on top of one another. So it's giving too much of an effect. So we have to get rid of some of these. So just go ahead and pause on that. Move this to the end. Wow, that's a nice one right there. Okay. And what we want to do, let's just take a look at this layout first. Over here in this window are our animation curves. This is the asset browser, and the only thing showing in here right now is the animation that we brought in from DAZ called G2F_morphs_animation, anim. And then here's our curves right here. Over here, this is where all of our curve graphs are. Now this window is adjustable so that you can move it up or down. You can actually undock it by left clicking here and pulling it away. You can tear it off, and if you have multiple monitors, you can move that over and, you know, make it a full screen to make it easier to edit your keyframes. So this adjusts up and down. And the same here. We've got some nice flexibility. Over here is our skeleton tree where all of our bones are. We'll use this when we get into moving the actual, like when we start turning the head and we start moving the shoulders and, you know, things like that. But in this course, we're going to be focusing mostly just on how to get some facial animation controls set up and how to get those going. And then how to save those as animations, how to bring them into a sequencer, and how to animate it into a video file. So down here, if you'll notice, these are, everything is down in here quite a bit, which we're not going to need. These expand. If you'll notice this little square here, if you click on that, it will expand the window. So you can take a look at the keyframes in more detail. Uncheck it, and it collapses back down. Now the first thing that we want to do is we want to create a new animation out of this so that we keep our original one intact, so we can go back to it if we need to. So to do that, we want to go up to File, Save As, and we want to select our animation window. Double click on that, and let's just call this one anim_01. So this will be our first test animation, and click Save. So now this is basically giving us a whole new one. See at this tab here, anim_01. And unfortunately, it throws the scene, it throws the character way back in the background again, and it doesn't maintain our lighting that we had before. So you need to pause the animation, change the speed of the camera if you want, so it's easier to move around. Middle mouse button, remember to go up and down. Middle mouse button and move your mouse. Right mouse button to rotate up and down. The wheel to zoom in and out, and then as you get closer, left mouse button and move your mouse forward or backwards. Okay, so select a bone, like a head bone, press the F key, the Alt key to rotate around, and then just push in. What we want to do is we want to get this face really, really close so we can see what we're doing. Click out here. The lit, I'm going to take it off auto, and I'm going to put this on 0 and -0.4, so it's not quite so bright and blown out. Okay, so we still have that funky animation where everything's going wrong here. So what I want to do is just go here to this arrow, and I want to remove all tracks. Okay, so we're just going to get rid of everything. So now we just have nothing in there. See, as we move the slider, let's move it back to the 0 frame. And as we look in here, let's go look in the animation curve section. Right here, we can move this. Let's adjust this so we can work in here. Here's the eyes closed. Click in here, that'll take it back. Click in here, 0 takes it back to 0. So the Genesis 2 female underscore control eyes closed. Okay, this one works, as does this one should work also. So what's happening is we brought in both. For some reason there's 2 controls inside of DAZ Studio, and it's bringing the Genesis 2 female and then the head controls as well. There is a way, to export just these. You have to name it properly, and it gets really confusing. I've just found I just bring them all over and I start deleting them. Now let's save our scene. Go up here to File and Save All, because sometimes I found when you start deleting these controls, it can crash the program. So you want to make sure that your hard work that you've got done here is saved and you don't lose everything. But we can see right off that the bikini bottom, eyelids, top, see, these are not needed. Okay, and they don't even work. So what we want to do is we want to select this and select the bikini bottom group, right click and delete curve. This is going to give us this error, or this warning: removing curves will necessitate loading and modifying animations, and blah blah blah. Continue. Yeah. Then it gives us another warning here, and just go ahead and do that. So go back to the top and go down here to the bikini top all the way down. Do the same thing. Right click, delete curve. Yes. Yes. Okay, now it's doing the same thing with the hair. So we want to select all of that and delete those curves as well. And then for some reason, I don't know if this is a bug or what, but you have to do it a couple times. Delete. Now, we don't need all of these. I usually stick with the head ones. It's up to you, whichever ones you want to delete and whichever ones you want to keep. Let's go over here and File, Save All, just so we keep all of that in case of a crash. So I'm going to delete and then see what it did. It gave me all these other ones that I deleted too. For some reason, it just doesn't like this. So we got to select them all again and delete them. And now finally we have a nice clean layout here of the morph sliders that we want to use. Here's how we adjust it right here. Now we need to go over and we can do the same thing. If you notice, we go over here and it's got the same thing going on. But since we're not going to be using this window, we're going to be in our animation window. But don't worry too much about that. We've cleaned this up, and this is what we want to use. So let's test these out. Let's just make sure they're all working. Starting with the top one here, eyelids up. Eyes closed. Back to 0. So test out all your controls as we go along. Eyes up and down. Nice eyelid movement. Afraid expression. And also, you'll notice here, this takes it all the way up to 1, but if you want, you could even go beyond that. See, I could put a 2 in there, and then it really goes more extreme. You just got to be careful. You don't want to break the face or the mesh or anything. So 1 or maybe like a 1.2 can give it a little bit more. But you have the ability to do that. Angry, there's our angry expression. All these have come across beautifully from Daz Studio, and wait till you see what we can do these with the animation curves in Unreal Engine, because it's really, really slick. Disgust. Okay, that looks good. Excitement. Lips pucker wide. Frown. And here's our mouth open wide, so we can go as, here's our digital puppet again. And then our mouth smile. Okay, so now everything is set up facially, everything we brought over from Daz. Keep in mind, again, you can bring over any of the expressions in Daz. Any of the morph targets from Daz will come straight over just in the process that we've done it. So you have a wide range of emotions that you can bring over for your characters. In the next video, we're going to set up some simple animations, starting with the blink animation and then moving the eyes and so forth. And we'll get into how we actually use the animation curves. So that's it for this video. Okay, now that we have everything set up, we have our morph targets all cleaned up over here. We have our new animation that we've created here, a blank animation where nothing is going on. So now we're going to get to do some fun things and actually get in here and start animating. The first thing we're going to do is a blink animation. And as we go along, we're going to add more like eye movements, mouth movements, expressions, and all that. And we're going to do it as layered animation. Each is going to have its own separate curve or animation curve. So I'm going to go really slow because there's some powerful tools inside here in the animation editor. And a lot of people don't know about these, and they're not really hidden, but they're not easy to find. So the first thing that we want to do in this area, we have a blank area, is we want to add a curve. So over here where it says add underneath curves, select this, go down to add variable curve, and we'll see that we have all these to select from, which are basically our morph sliders. So let's go up here to the head underscore control eyes closed, highlight that, and left click on that. So what the program has done is it's created for us a blank animation curve so that we can create the eyes closing. Go over here to this box and check that, and we want to expand that so it's bigger. Now I've already done this, but I want to show you. I like to work with a long curve box. So since we don't really need a whole lot of room over here, just grab the side of the window here and move it over so you have a nice big window to look at as you're animating. Plus it gives us a nice long animation curve box here. Now this can also be torn off like this, and you can resize it if you prefer to work this way. You can resize the box or the window. You can move it over to another screen, and I sometimes do that, and then you can expand it, all the way to fill the screen, or you can just bring it in here like we're doing here and move this over to the side, because we're not going to need the bones or the skeletons with what we're doing for a while. We're going to be just focusing on the facial animation. So go ahead and do that. Move that over a little bit. Just take a moment to get it set up to where you like it. Zoom in really close on the character's face. Okay, so now we're set up to do some animation. this default animation that it created because of what we brought in, it has, let's zoom this out here, about 130 some frames. Let's make this a little longer just so we can see how to add frames in the animation. What you do is you go down here into the timeline, right click, and then where it says append at the end, just click on that and it's going to pop up a little window for us. And let's just add 100 more frames and then click return. So now it's added all of this extra time here for us. Gives us a little bit more time. We can do this at any time as we're working on our animation. Just add frames, or I'll show you how to remove them later too, from the beginning or the end. And now let's go to our 0 point here. Now to move around in the animation curve itself, right now it's got the line down at the bottom at the 0 position, and here's the 1 position here and the 2 position up here. If you right click with your mouse, you can move it up and down if you want to just move it around to, you know, have a better view of it. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start creating keyframes so we can create some really cool realistic eye blinks. So the way we do that is you press the Shift key on your keyboard and then your left mouse button and you click, and that creates your keyframe right there. So what we want to do for a blink is we want to make 3 keyframes. One there, one there, one there. It doesn't really matter right now how they're spaced out because I'm going to show you how easy it is and powerful to grab these keyframes and move them around. So this right here is going to represent a blink, and then we go ahead and select the middle one here. This is the one we want to close, and just click and drag it up to the number 1 position, and you can see the value window over here, right over here. It's telling us where we're at. And to be super accurate, I usually go into the value window and I type in 1.0 to get it all the way to the top. And this is our first keyframe. So if we go over here, we can see that she's now blinking her eyes. Now, one thing I want to show you, let's come over here to where the morphs are over to the right. See where this is checked here? I'm going to uncheck this. And now as I scroll, see the blink isn't happening. This was really frustrating to me in the beginning. I was like, what's going on? How come she's not blinking? Why isn't my morph working? And that's because you have to go over here to the controller, the eyes closed here, and just check on that. Each one as we go to use these, we have to check the box here. So check the box, and now all of a sudden she's blinking again. A nice blink. Okay, so we're going to space these out, so just do this along with me. Press the Shift key, and we're going to place 3 more keyframes. 1, 2, 3. And then go forward in your timeline. 1, 2, 3. Let's say we want a double blink right around here. We want her to blink twice. So we go 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Go forward a little bit more. I'm still holding down my Shift key. 1, 2, 3. And then 1. You can also click up here if you want. Either way, you can click and it'll just follow your clicks here. But then you get this situation where it's not back down to where it needs to be. So then you have to go over to the value and press 0. Okay, so now we've got the basics here, and now the middle keyframes in each of these groupings, we want to bring them up to 1. So rather than individually doing them, shift click them, not shift click, control click, hold the control key down on your keyboard and left mouse button in the middle of each one. And this one we already kind of moved. And then see from there you can move all of them at once. But I usually go over here to the value. It'll say multiple values. Just click in there with your left mouse button to highlight it. type in 1.0, hit return, and it's moved all of our keyframes up to the top. Click anywhere in the gray area to deselect your keyframes. And now let's move our cursor all the way to the beginning. Come over here to our controller in the timeline, and then press play. Check that out. This is so cool. I mean, now we got some realistic blinking going on. See the double blink in there? Okay, great. Now what we want to do is we want to find out how we can change these. These are just linear interpolation right now, which is straight up and down. If we want these blinks to be a little smoother and, you know, not so abrupt, what we can do is we can left mouse button, drag select. See how I did that? Just drag select all of the keyframes. And you can do this in one of two ways. The hotkey for this is the number 1 key on your keyboard, numeric key 1. Or you can select one of these keyframes and right click on it and go up here to auto. And what that's done is it's changed it into nice smooth animation curves. So now let's go ahead and play that and see if you can see a difference. How her eyes kind of, as they open, they don't just open and stay there. They're kind of moving more in the top position. This is fully editable by you, however you want. You know, just go by how you like it. If you want to go down here in the bottom position and control select, these keyframes and change them back to a linear. Maybe you don't like the way it looks, so just control select these keyframes, right click and go to linear, and boom. Looks like I missed this one here. There we go. So now these are linear at the bottom. This is just, you know, your preference, however it looks good to you. You've got full control over the curves here. Now let's say that this is really cool. I mean, the power in these animation curves is just unbelievable. Like, remember over in DAZ, we couldn't even begin to do anything like this because you didn't have access to the animation curves. Well, here we do. So let's say that right here we want this blink to be really slow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this first keyframe at the bottom, and I'm going to hold down the Shift key and left mouse select, and this allows me to move it over. And it keeps it right on the line, so it's not going to go up or down and mess up my position. So let's do that. Grab the next one and move this one way over. And then grab the middle one, left mouse button. See, it's very easy to adjust this just moving the mouse around. But I want to keep this at 1. And now what we've done here, watch this. Now she's got a really slow blink. Let's look at that again. Boom. If you wanted to add another keyframe to Shift, hold the Shift key. You've added a keyframe here, and now you could, you know, change this to where it's going to be, and let's add another one here just for kicks. Change the speed within the blink itself. Let's say I don't like that, right? Well, that didn't do what I want. So how do I delete a keyframe? Well, I've got this keyframe selected right here. So on my keyboard, I just hit the delete key. Boom, gone. This one here, gone. Let's say I didn't like that at all. Hit the delete key and it's gone. Decide I want to put these back in there. Hold down the Shift key, 1, 2, 3. Move this one up. Oops, went a little too high. Type in 1. Hit the 1 key on, whoops, select that. Hit the 1 key on the keyboard. And now I've got my nice smooth one here. Okay, so let's run through that. Got a slow blink in there. All right, let's say I decide, well, I don't really like that blink there. I want her to blink a little bit later on. How do I do that? How do I move these keyframes? Well, left mouse button, click select, hold down your shift key on the keyboard, and move. It's going to move all of them right here closer to the double blink. Let's do another one. Let's move this one over. Hold down the shift key. Move it all the way over here. So very, very user friendly. Let's play this. And there we go. So that's how easy it is to create keyframes inside the animation curve, to manipulate them and to move them around, delete them, do whatever you'd like. Now, if you wanted, for example, you didn't want her to blink all the way on one of them. Let's say that, here, let's move this one back here. And let's slow it down. Let's move this way out. And we want her to not blink all the way, but we just want her eyes to go kind of halfway. Just kind of squints a little bit, right? That's how you do that. You just move your keyframe down. So I'm sure you're starting to see the tremendous control and power you have in the Unreal Engine animation curves. It's really cool. When I first found this, I was so excited. I was like, wow, woohoo! And I'm sure you're seeing the potential in this as well. Although this is a simple animation, you know, most are. And again, like I said before, what we're going to do is start to layer an animation on top of the animation curves on top of each other. And it won't be happening in this curve. Each one of the motions will have its own animation curve independently, so it doesn't get all confusing where they're all overlaid, you know, in the same graph. Okay, so what we figured out in this video is we learned how to create an animation curve. We learned how to expand the window, adjust the windows the way we need to do it. We learned how to add keyframes, which is by holding down the shift key and the left mouse button, and then just clicking inside of the graph. We learned how to move keyframes around by just grabbing it with the left mouse button, holding down the shift key if we wanted to just move it, for example this one here, and keep it where it's at so it doesn't go up or down. We also learned how to turn these keyframes into, by hitting the 1 key, to smooth these curves out so that they're all individually adjustable with the curve handles. Oops. We learned how to select and delete keyframes. We learned how to select them, and then in the value window to choose a 1 or a 0 or whatever you want. And then we learned how to select, holding the shift key, and move our keyframes very easily and quickly to where we wanted them, so we can put the blinks wherever we want. We don't have to redo the whole animation. So, congratulations for getting this far. This is really a major thing, so give yourself a pat on the back. And in the next video, we're going to do the eye movement, side to side and up and down eye movements, so that we can add those along with the blinks, and we'll get some realistic eye movements. Okay, the next thing we are going to do is the turning eyes animation, moving side to side and then up and down. But before we do that, we want to make sure that we save our animation that we've created this far of the eye blinks. So up here where it says apply, you'll see that animation is being edited to apply to compressed data and recalculate. Click apply. So this is really important to do periodically. It's a really good process to click apply frequently and then save. So that will save our animation. Otherwise you can be going along for a long time. You know how you get lost in your work and then If something happens and the program crashes, you would have lost all that. So just make it a habit to go up there and click apply. Now let's go over here to our map where we have our character here. And let's play this and we'll see what we have here. So click on the drop down arrow here, and we want to put it on simulate so we can stay in the same viewport and not go into game mode. And as you can see, we've got that original freaky animation still on this character. So go ahead and press stop. Click on the character and then go over here to the animation section, and we can see that this still has the original animation. So what we want to do is hit this drop down menu and put the one that we just created that has the eye blinks only. So now she's just got the eye blinks. Come up here, press play, and you can see there's our blinking animation that we created. Press stop. Now there's another way we could have done that is we could have dragged in the animation folder, we could have grabbed the animation with our character, press the space bar and turn her around, and then she has the animation attached to her already. Press play. Okay, so that's working correctly on the character. Now let's go back to our animation screen. And what we want to do is come over here and we want to minimize our blinking eyes animation. And we really don't need that to be showing up here. So the way to get rid of it, what you don't want to do is you don't want to remove the track. If you remove the track, all of your animations, all your keyframes are going to be deleted. So you don't want to do that. What you do want to do is go over here to this drop down right underneath the curves, and it shows that our eyes closed control has a check mark. Just uncheck that and then click refresh. So it's still there, it's just not going to show up down here. So now what we want to do is add, click add to the side here, variable curve, and we want to do the eyes side to side. So select that, click here to expand, and then we have our graph ready to go. Remember, right click with your mouse to move up and down, and let's just put it about there. And then we want to put some keyframes in here. So remember the shift button, hold down the shift button on your keyboard, left click to add one, and then we can do this, remember we can do it right in the timeline itself. So let's put one there, let's put one there, let's put one there. Let's just kind of do this so we're moving the eyes around. And then we'll end up, because we want it to cycle the same way in the end, we'll put this at the 0 spot. Okay, make sure that the eyes side to side is checked, because if not, it's not going to show up. And now we see the movement of the eyes going side to side. Okay, that doesn't look bad. So what do we do now is we want to select all of these keyframes, press the 1 on our keyboard, and turn those into nice smooth curves so that the eye movement is going to go even smoother. So let's say we wanted to play around with these eye movements now. We wanted them to move quicker. So remember how we just grabbed these keyframes and they're really easy to move. Just drag them around where you want them. Press play. Not too bad. That's looking okay. You know, a real person, when they move their eyes, sometimes they dart their eyes really fast like that. So you can spend some time moving these keyframes closer together and make your movements a little more abrupt. But you get the idea here of how easy it is to put in these keyframes and move them around. So go up here and click Apply. Over here and click the Save button, so we save our animation. And now we have the eye movements going side to side. Now let's come over here to the box, click it to where we minimize it. Let's give us a little bit more space here. Let's click on Add, Variable Curve, and we want eyes up and down. So here's side to side, here's eyes up and down. We want to make that one bigger, expand that graph window, and we're going to do the same thing here. Right mouse button to move this up. Hold down the Shift key, left mouse button, click to add a keyframe. When she's looking up here, now she's looking down, she's looking up. Make sure that the last keyframe, the value is 0 along with the first keyframe so that we can not have a jump at the end of it. Select and press the 1 on your keyboard. Gives us the nice curves there. And now let's press play. Cool, huh? So now we have a really nice blinking animation with the side-to-side eye movement overlaid on it and a little bit of up and down. And again, this is just to show the procedure, so you can spend, you know, as much time as you want to get these looking the way you want. Okay, now let's go back, press Apply, Save. Let's go back into our map and press Play. Let's really move in closer here. There we go. Nice eye movements, everything nice and smooth, good blinks. Now once we add some little bit of head turning, that's going to look very realistic, especially when we get into some expressions. That's where it really gets fun. Okay, in the next video we're going to do the mouth movement, and then we'll get into the facial expressions. Okay, so far we have the eye movement, the eye blinks working really good. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to get the mouth opening and closing. So let's go here into this drop-down arrow. Go ahead and uncheck these because we don't need to click refresh. So we give ourselves some room here. And then we want to add variable curve, and we want to come down here and find mouth open wide. So there's our graph right there. Come over here and check this box to give us lots of room to work with so we can see better. And again, remember with our right mouse button moving up and down, we can see our baseline right here for the graph. And then we just want to add some simple open and close mouth movements. We're not going to be lip syncing or anything right now. We just want to get the mouth moving, opening and closing. So let's go ahead and hold down our Shift key, left mouse button for our first keyframe, add value 0. And then remember we can just left click anywhere in the graph and it'll make our keyframe. And then the last one, let's just make sure that that's 0 so it'll loop correctly. Let's drag select left mouse button, drag select all of our keyframes. Hold down the control key to get the rest of those like that. So with all of our keyframes selected, we want to make it into a nice curve. So we press the 1 key on the keyboard. And then we have some nice curves here. Let's select all of these in the top position. And then where it says multiple values, highlight that. And then type in 1.0. That way they're all in the 1 position. And let's see what we have. So there's her mouth opening and closing. I'll click play here. So now we have eyes moving, blinking, and the mouth opening and closing. Good. Let's click pause. Remember now from here, all we have to do if we want to adjust the keyframes is click on the keyframe, hold down the shift key to keep it in place so it doesn't move up, and then move it to the left or right. And then the same with these. Select, move them. So you can easily adjust where you want the mouth to open and close. All right, so again, just doing this not for any really super good animation, just to get the technique down so you know where these tools are. Okay, let's minimize this. Now let's go ahead and let's add another variable curve. Let's do the pucker wide. And we'll click that to open it up. Right mouse button to move this up and down. Let's go back to our 0 point. And what we want to do with the pucker is we just want to put this spaced out, just to make the mouth change a little bit. So let's go ahead and hold the shift key down, left mouse button, click our first keyframe. And then let's just put a couple of these in here along here. Make that 0. Okay, see how that's easy to miss it? Make sure it stays highlighted and keep your cursor in there and then type 0 and hit return so that it takes that. Okay, now let's drag select along here and press the 1 key on the keyboard to give us that nice smooth curve. And then let's just select all of the top ones here. And let's highlight multiple values. Click the 1. So now when we go through here, we can see that's way too much, but we can see her mouth moving and changing shape here. So it creates a nice blend between the two, the open mouth and this one. So let's go ahead, since we still have these selected, let's just pull these down because that was way too much of an effect. So however subtle you want it or whatever, it's totally within your control. It's just a simple drag up and down on the keyframes. Now keep in mind for lip sync down the road that you can also bring in all the phonemes, or however you pronounce that, I never know. All the A, E, I, O, U mouth positions can be brought in here into Unreal Engine so that you can really get some accurate mouth positions, mouth morphs, and really get some nice realistic movements. Okay. And let's go up here, click apply. So we apply the animation, click the save button. Let's pause this one. And now let's go over to our map and let's click play. Remember to have this on simulate. Let's click play. And now we can see that it's added the mouth movements that we just added here to our character. And that's it for this video. In the next video, we're going to cover expressions, those expressions we brought over, and we're going to put those into the animation timeline, and we're going to blend a few of those together. Okay, we have a pretty good animation going here. We've got eye movements, eye blinking, and we have a mouth opening and closing along with a little bit of a mouth pucker put in there. So as we drag through the timeline, you can see. And one of the things I really like about Unreal Engine is it's very, very smooth, as you notice. It's very stable as you scroll in the timeline. It doesn't hang up, it doesn't get sluggish or anything like that. It's really, really cool. So we click play and we've got that going on. Now the next thing that we want to do, let me pause this, is we want to add expressions. And because the expressions have mouth movements on them already, it's not a good thing to keep the existing mouth movement. We need to delete these, or the other thing, if you wanted to keep them in here, is just to select all the keyframes and zero them out so they're not showing. But for our purposes, let's just go over here and select remove track from the drop down arrow key and remove track. So now we have just the eye movements again. And for our first expression, we want to come over here to add variable curve, and let's come up here to where it says head PHMA afraid. Come over here to our box to expand our graph, and we can see that we're all ready for this afraid expression. Right mouse button to move up and down makes it a little bit easier to plant our keyframes. So with our shift key held down on the keyboard, left mouse button, click for our keyframe, make sure our value is at 0, and that's going to be our starting point. Holding down the shift key, I'm going to get as close to 1 as I can. And let's say that we want to hold this facial expression until then. That's what we do. It's kind of hard to get it positioned right at 0, so just go back up here with your cursor in the window. Remember, 0. And then we want to select all of our keyframes. Drag select, press 1 on the keyboard, and that gives us the nice curve here. So now when we drag through, we got our afraid expression right here. Now if we wanted to hold that, of course, all we'd have to do is select these keys here, hold down the shift key, and drag, and move this back to 0, and we just hold it as long as we want. Let's go ahead and move this back, because what we're going to want to do is add the different expressions in here. So we need room for about 4 of them in here. Okay, so there's afraid right there. And let's minimize this so we have some room to work, and we'll just keep that right there for now. And we go to add variable curve, and let's go to our next one, disgust. So disgust is right underneath it. Click the expand box here, right mouse button, up and down. And since our expression ends right here, we want to start our next one soon after that. So shift key held down, left mouse button for our first keyframe at value 0. Bring that back down to 0. Select, drag select your keyframes. Press the 1 key on your keyboard, and we have our nice smooth curve. Okay, so we're going to go from this expression to this expression, the disgust. Now watch what happens. Let's shift select these, or drag select, I mean, and hold down the shift key on your keyboard, and let's move this right underneath the other one. So we have our afraid and our disgust on top of each other. So what Unreal Engine does is blending the two for us. So you can really get a unlimited number of expressions by combining different morph targets. And then just by selecting these, maybe you want to minimize that a little bit so it's not quite as pronounced. See? Make some fine, subtle adjustments. Drag select, hold down the shift key. Let's just move it back over here, because what we want to do is we want to go from expression to expression because we're just learning the tools and where the controls are. Okay, now let's go ahead and minimize this one. Come up to add variable curve, and what's our next one? Angry. So angry is right in the middle. Let's go ahead and expand that one. Right mouse button to move up and down. And let's see, we've got this is where this one ends, so we want to hold down the shift key, left mouse button for our keyframe. Oops, kind of tricky. Select the keyframe, come over here, make sure it's at 0. Drag select, press 1 on the keyboard, so we have a nice smooth curve. Now, if it's this quick, you probably don't need this keyframe, so you can just select it and delete it, and then just move this one where you want it. If you find out that you want it to be held up a little longer, and there you go. Press 1 on the keyboard. Let's select both of these and make sure that they're at 1.0. Okay, so we have a nice pretty curve here, nice smooth curve. Let's go here and let's drag. Alright, there's our angry girl right there. Okay, looking good. So we have one more to go. Let's minimize this. Go up here to add variable curve, and it is excitement. Expand the window, right mouse button, move up and down. Let's see where this one ended. The angry one. You may have to adjust your window a little bit to give yourself a little more room. Okay, left mouse button, shift key held down on the keyboard, left mouse button, click to add your keyframe. Zero. Select drag, press 1 on the keyboard, nice smooth curve. Okay, so let's drag through. Oh, okay, so she's happy here. Okay, so let's click play. Let's go through the animation. Okay, looking good. So now what we want to do is we want to remember to click apply and then click save so that we save our animation. Let's go over here to our map and let's click play here, and we can see that the animations are on our character. Nice, huh? Give yourself a pat on the back. Congratulations. This is really a big deal because this if you've gotten this far, you really accomplished a lot. And with these tools and these controls, I mean, you can see what you'll be able to do with the powerful animation features of Unreal Engine. So let's go back here. Now remember what we did before is, let's say that we wanted to add there's one more expression in here, the smile expression. Let's say that we wanted to add that in here, but now we don't have any more space. So we'd either have to move all of our animations, make them happen faster, but we want to just add, some more frames onto this. So remember how we did that is we go down here to the timeline, we right click, and we say append at the end. Add at the end, append at the end. So let's just give us enough room. Let's just say 100 frames we want at the end. So now Unreal Engine just gave us a whole bunch of more space here. We got 100 more frames to deal with. Okay. So let's go and let's give ourselves some room since we don't need these anymore. Let's go to the drop down arrow. See how they're all checked off, the ones that we're showing? You can just click hide all and that'll get rid of all of them at once. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to add variable curve and we want to do mouth smile open. So there's where our expression left off. So we're going to start it right here. Right mouse button, hold down the shift key, left mouse button to add the keyframe at 0 value, and we'll get close to 1 here. I want her to hold the smile till about here, and then back down to 0. Drag select, press 1 on your keyboard, and now you've got a nice smooth curve. Let's see what that looks like. Yay, nice smile. Press play. Alright, so now we're playing through our animation where we've added our layers. And remember, you can combine morphs by just having them one on top of each other. So the sky's the limit with the types of expressions that you can make. Okay, remember to click apply, click save. Let's go back over to our map. And here she is, going through the expressions. Okay, and that's it for this video. Now that we've done facial animations, what we're going to do next is turn the head. So we're going to set up a head animation. First thing we want to do is make sure we click apply on the animation and save it. Remember to do that all the time. And we're in the animation _01. So what we want to do is we want to save this as a new animation, and let's just call this one head turn, and we're saving in our animation folder. Go ahead and pause the animation, click on her head, press the F key to jump forward closer really quickly. Up here, change our camera speed down to 3 so it's a little easier to move around. Okay, let's get in nice and tight so we can see the movement. Now in this case, you can see that I already have some of the animation curves here still. Let's just play this animation. So she's got just some various facial expressions going on here. You can either leave these, choose which ones you want, or delete them all, because what we want to focus on right now is just turning the head and making a loopable head turn animation. So let's go up here. I'm going to go ahead and leave them, but I'm going to click and I'm going to hide them all so it gives us some space here. Okay, so the first thing that we want to do, and see we have our new animation head turn. Make sure that we're in that animation so we don't override our previous one. And we want to just click on her head. You could do the head or you could do the neck, either one. Let's just select the head right here. And down here in our timeline, make sure that we're at the beginning on frame 0. And grab the head and just kind of turn it back and forth a little bit just to activate it. Now this has got the snapping on, and a lot of times I don't like that, so what I'll do is I'll come up here and turn off the snap to controls, so it's a lot smoother and more responsible when you do that. So go ahead and just kind of move it slightly, and then down here in the timeline press the S key, and what that's done is it's opened up a new curve and it's put some keyframes here. Now, we want the first keyframes and the last keyframes to be the same, so go all the way to the end and press the S key again without moving anything, without moving your character. And you'll notice that it's different from the beginning. For some reason, I don't know what it is, it's finicky here, but go back to the 0 frame and click S again. And make sure you're at the beginning and then press the S key again. So you kind of have to do it once in the beginning, go to the end, press the S key without moving anything, and then go back to the beginning and press the S key for a keyframe. And then it will give you the same keyframes in the end and in the beginning. Up here is a speed control. So if you want to speed it up to like 5, just to double check, make our animation faster, we can see that the head isn't moving, going through the animation and cycling through. Now what we want to do is let's go ahead and move. Let's go forward about to frame 98, and let's grab a hold of the head, and let's turn our head all the way over here, like to a 45-degree angle. Press the S key on the keyboard. That will give us our keyframes. And then let's move forward about to frame 250 or so. Let's grab our control, move her head the other direction, press S on the keyboard, and that'll give us a keyframe here. So now we've got her head turning, left and right, and it's going to end up in the same place so that we can loop this animation in case we want to use it for an idle pose if she's just standing there. So I've got the speed on 5 times. Let's go ahead and press play and just check the animation. See how our head's moving back? There's no jump cut at the end because we've copied the frames correctly. And let's pause. Now let's say we decide in the middle here we want our head to be moved up. So let's just move her head up at this point like that. Press the S key. And now we're going to get an up and down movement in the middle of our animation here. Now remember, to smooth things out, all we have to do, because these are just sharp curves right now, is drag select. Let's select the curves here, not the ones at the blue line up here, those are scale. And then with holding down the control key, drag select these, and then drag select these, and then press the number 1 on the keyboard, and that's going to give us the nice smooth curves going through here. It'll smooth it out so her head motion is a lot smoother. So let's press play here. Okay, not too bad. Click pause. Let's go ahead and put this on regular speed. And we can scroll through here. If we decide we want to adjust any of these, all we have to do is select them, hold down the shift key if you want to move these back and forth for these keyframes to begin sooner or later. You can also just select them and move them individually. You've got total control over that. So now we have a head turning animation, and we want to click apply, click save, and now we have a brand new animation. So let's see what that looks like in our map. So let's go to our character and select our character, and she's using animation 01 here. Let's go ahead and change that to the animation head turn, And then we'll come up here, make sure that our simulate is on, and click play. And now we've got her turning her head, along with the facial animations that were already there. Looks nice and smooth. And again, we can make this as fast or as slow as we want back in our animation section here. And that's it for the head turn.